Good morning to all. There was a request that yes, I should go ahead and first of all introduce the topic of philosophy of mind rather than just starting off with the topics, pertaining to the theories of consciousness. Now, I started off with Bhagavad Gita, then I thought, okay, let me go ahead and give you a brief introduction, maybe in another five to six video presentations of mine, wherein you will go ahead and understand what exactly is subject of philosophy of mind, number one. Number two, get introduced to the words which are pertaining to that particular topic. Number three, we will understand as to what are the various questions that are raised, number one. Number two, what are the various arguments presented in this particular topic. Number three, if we can go ahead and know the important philosophers, thinkers, and the schools pertaining to philosophy of mind. Lastly, but not the least, definitely, yes, we need to bifurcate the subject into two parts. One focusing exclusively on the Western concepts, and the second one focusing exclusively on the Indian concepts, I would say. I'm not going to introduce the other South Asian countries or the Islamic philosophy or Persian philosophy, however, or the even the Chinese philosophy. I'm just going to focus exclusively on the Western, and under the non-Western context, exclusively on the Indian perspectives. We will check it out over here. So with that, I'm going to welcome each one of you, and let's proceed further. I will be going very slowly and make you understand the subject of philosophy of mind, number two. Number three, try to understand as to what all things, and I thought the best thing that I can take up to introduce is the subject is through Wikipedia page, rather than going into the higher ends, let's say in internet philosophical blogs or the encyclopedias that we have got over to study also. So once we complete with this, maybe in between I can go ahead and I can discuss or showcase to you all those things. Now if we look at the picture on your right hand side, you can see that it's a face that they are showcasing, and there are various things that are present on the head of the person. So that depicts the brain of the human being, and from there you come to know that yes, there is a human being. We are looking at the face and the head part of it. Within the head there is something called as the brain, and where certain things are taking place. Now we do not know what exactly it is. Now here they say that philosophy of mind is a branch of philosophy that studies the ontology and nature of the mind and its relationship with the body. Now, try to understand. They have introduced three things. Number one, it's not a metaphysical, they are calling it as ontological thing, number one. Number two, what is the nature of the mind? So, is there something very different from our bodies? And they have taken it for granted that yes, there is something called as mind. And number three, the relationship with the human body. Now, whether it, they did not categorize it, whether this is going to be a human body, though with the face, I'm seeing it's for a human being, therefore I'm using the word human. Otherwise, bodies we are able to see around us in the form of animals, plants, birds, and even now I would say cyborgs, robots. Everything is available in front. Now tomorrow it can be possible that even your computer is turned out to be a body, and we are talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about machine learning, everything. So we will see what these things are. So he goes from here, the mind body problem. Try to understand what is the problem pertaining to. There is on one hand mind, on the other hand you have got the body. So that's the problematic thing that we have got, is a paradigmatic issue. It's a paradigmatic issue in philosophy of mind, although a number of other issues are also present. For example, the hardcore problem of consciousness. We do not know. We have this particular paper is there to understand, and it's not just one theory. They are giving you so many theories, so you have got theories of consciousness in front of you. So, how many theories have been given to us? Let's look up slowly once we enter into the subject also. So, there is this problem of consciousness on one hand, and the nature of particular mental states. Now, you see, he is not talking about the universal mental states. He is talking about the particular mental state. That means the mental state of Ramini is very different from the mental state of, let's say, Sulakshana or Radhika, or let's say, even we can go ahead with Rose. We do not know how these mental states are differing from one person to the other person. So, aspects of mind that are in studies include are, we are going to discuss about mental events, mental functions, mental properties, consciousness, the ontology of the mind, the nature of the thought, and the relationship of the mind and body. So you should go ahead and underline these things absolutely for yourself and say that yes, see, I have got under the problem of mind body. I need to focus on the mental events, mental functions. Then we are talking about a mental, let's say over here, we have got the mental properties. Then we are even talking about mental, let's say, consciousness, the ontology of the mind, the nature of the thought, and the relationship of the mind and the body also. Okay, so these are certain things that you need to understand and focus more and more. Now if I come over to the next part, you will see that there are what we are talking about, something else, that is different schools that are there, and we need to understand. Okay, so what are those schools and the things that we need to understand? So here comes what they call it as dualism. Okay, and on the other hand I have got monoism, are the two central schools of thought on the mind body problem, and the entire discussions that you will be seeing across the domain will be on this particular aspect of dualism and monoism. So what do you mean by dualism and what do you mean by monoism? So these are two different aspects that you need to use while you are discussing. So let's say if I'm progressing further into any of the theory of consciousness into your subject, you will see that I'm talking about dualism on hand, on the other hand I'm talking about the monoism. So we will see whether these are the only two schools that fit in our category, or there are other schools also which are there. So he says that if you look at dualism, okay, we would see that yes, they are talking about something else also side by side, and that is a dualism find its way, okay, completely its entry into Western philosophy thanks to Descartes. Now if you understand, in your early classes you have read about Descartes through his book Meditations, and we have seen very clearly he's talking about the so-called Cartesian problem. I think therefore I am, he comes up to that particular conclusion, and we have completely discussed how the things are taking place. Maybe in future I would love to take up that book again and start reading it line by line for each one of us. Now, substance dualists like Descartes argue that mind is an independently existing substance. Remember this thing very clearly. This is the Cartesian hold. He says that mind is independently existing substance, number one. Number two, he says that you need to go ahead and try to understand that yes, what exactly is taking place. So here you will see property dualist maintain that. Okay, so you have got these property dualists who are there, maintain that the mind is a group of independent properties. So, it's not just one school that we are talking about right now. We have, going further, we are going to bifurcate different schools of dualism also. And if you go ahead in your post graduation, and if you take up philosophy of mind as one of your subjects for specialization, you will see that it's not just one school of dualism. There are so many schools are there, depending upon their theories, the concepts, the clarifications, explanations that they are giving to us, that emerge from and cannot be reduced to the brain. So they say that, sorry, we cannot go ahead and say that yes, this is where our theory is going to end, and say mind is identical to the brain. In fact, I would definitely showcase to you maybe another version wherein you need to understand there are just three things that we need to find out: whether mind is identical to brain, number two, number three, mind is not identical to brain. So how the differences are coming in. If we are talking exclusively about the mind itself, then where does the mind exist? Now if I'm talking about exclusively about the brain, how do you go ahead and justify the realm of mental thoughts or ideas which are coming in, or different levels of consciousness? Now different levels, the flow of consciousness, if you look up very clearly, it starts from the physical world. You take either top down approach or downwards to the top approach. Ultimately the question comes in, where is this? Like for example, if you're sleeping, when you are sleeping, you experience so many things. How do you go ahead and give an explanation, a justification for those dreams which you have never encountered in your life, present life I'm talking about? So you will see different schools coming and saying, okay, consciousness can never die. Maybe in some birth you were experiencing, or maybe your intuitions are so high that yes, you are able to see your future life or the future events also sometimes. So there are those schools kind of a thing that need to be understood. Contrary to this, you will come across what we call it as monoism. So what is this monism? Monism says that mind and body are ontologically indiscernible entities. Try to understand, underline this: ontologically, it's not metaphysical. You see, try to understand the word metaphysics. Physics is something where a particular thing occupies some space and is existing in the time. However, when you're talking about metaphysics, it goes beyond the realms of the physics. So whatever you're talking in terms of the physics, something which goes beyond that discussions will be falling under the domain of metaphysics. So what do you talk about in ontology? Now ontologically will be something different kind of a thing, wherein you're not talking about physical things or existing in time. It is something which you can feel, however you are not able to see it, perceive it, you are just experiencing. Okay, so here they are telling you that mind and body are not independent substances. So what is it? This view was first advocated in Western philosophy by Parmenides in the 5th century BCE. Parmenides, he is again one more philosopher, I would say a very well-known philosopher from Greek philosophy. And if you study the ancient Greek philosophy, you will understand what exactly right from pre-Socratic Thales, then Anaxagoras, then we have got Anaximenes, Pythagoras, Heraclitus. Now if you study, Parmenides comes in between for us, and he is more or less like a rationalist Baruch Spinoza. So you have got Spinoza also talking about, and both of their philosophical thoughts can be combined together. Physicalist, now these are another class of monoism, wherein they are going to say that only entities postulated by physical theory exist, because they are advocates of philosophy. So they are going to rely on that, and that mental processes can be eventually explained in terms of the physical theories. It can be through you can go ahead and discuss consciousness equivalent to quantum theories that you have got. Then you can even talk about at the level of the atomic levels. I don't know, they are talking about nerves, the neurons, then how you are going to explain once you pin down to the atomic level also. Then they're telling you after that, physicalists maintain various positions on the aspects of reducing mental properties to physical properties. They are going to identify that, see, this particular mental property is due to so and so physical property, and they come up, and that's why this is called as physical dualism, and you will see later on. The ontological status of such mental properties remains unclear. It becomes either when you are going to present your own arguments, either they turn out to be dilemmas or paradoxes or something, there are certain fallacies, and that's the reason wherein I would say that you need to be very good in your logic, because you are able to see those fallacies where they are talking about, then you are able to come up with the paradoxes, then you are able to underline and see the dilemmas which are present over there. Now that's the importance of the arguments that you are going to present while you are discussing about these things. Now idealist, this is another school. So we have seen monoism. Under monoism we have seen physicalist. Under physicalist we have seen there will be a lot of reductionist. Dualism is there, behavioral monoism there. Now comes the school of idealism. Maintain that mind is all that exists, and that the external world is either mental itself, okay, or an illusion created by the mind. So two things, choices you have got, okay, as a disjunctive thing. One is either it is mental itself, or you will say it is an illusion which is created by the mind. So this is one school. The other school that you have to remember is neutral monist, like Ernest Mach or William James, who is a pragmatist, who says that the events in the world can be thought of as either mental, psychological, or physical, depending on the network of relationships into which they enter. And dual aspect monists like Spinoza adhere to the position that there is some other neutral substance, and that both matter and mind are properties of this unknown substance. And what is that unknown substance is a big mystery, is a big secret, you can say, and we just need to experience it. Now that's where the Western philosophers jump into, and they say that this unknown thing is something that we do not know, however we are able to experience. You go to the meditation classes, a time will come when you are able to experience. However, if I ask you, can you please describe it, it's impossible, you cannot describe it, however you can feel it. Now, for example, if you go and smell rose. Now, once you smell rose, what is happening over there? You are able to feel the smell. However, if I ask you, can you please describe it? It becomes very difficult for you to take care. Now, similarly, let's say you are munching your favorite dish. Okay, now after you complete it, I ask you, narrate your experience about eating your favorite dish. You say, don't ask me, I've just munched it, I'm satisfied with it, as simple as that. Now you cannot go ahead and take care. Now I hope you understand what it is. The most common monoisms in the 20th and 21st centuries have seen all these physicalism. So you have got behaviorism is one school. The other school, now what does behaviorism tell you? It tells you that yes, through the behavior of an individual, you can identify mind and brain. The type of identity theory, which I told you, mind equals to brain. Anomalous monism. Yes, both of them are same. However, you are not able to describe it. Either there is some kind of an anomaly over there, or some kind of a fallacy, or some mistake is there in your own thought level in describing such things. Then you come up with what you call it as another school of thought, which is basically functionalism. Through certain functions, you are able to come up and take care of it. So here you will see most modern philosophers of mind adopt either a reductive physicalist or a non-reductionist physicalist position, maintaining in their different ways that the mind is not something separate from the body. Remember this. If you are adhering to the reductive physicalist school, or non-reductive. Again, you are falling into the categories of dualism or monoism on the other hand. These approaches, understand and be very careful why I'm so much interested, have been particularly influential in the sciences, in the field of sociobiology, computer science, artificial intelligence. Now I love that area like anything, and I know how much of dedication and how seriously I'm following artificial intelligence area and trying to understand the thing. So if you come to after your masters, if you want to flourish and go ahead with your own I would say research over that, you're most welcome. Then evolutionary psychology and the various neurosciences, and it's not just the artificial intelligence. Now you're talking about neural networks, you're talking about machine learning, robotics. Okay, then how do you explain all these things as a students of philosophy of mind? Now that's the world that you need to talk about. So on one hand, to give you another piece of information, that yes, you can focus on philosophy of mind on one hand. On the other hand, you're talking about the entire area of artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks. Then you're talking about natural language processing. You can carry forward, and then you can even associate yourself with philosophy of technology, wherein all these topics would be again combined together, and you would be able to discuss a lot of things and present your arguments. Now reductive physicalists assert that what all mental states and properties will eventually be explained by scientific accounts. If you read the book by Richard Feynman, read the book by Roger Penrose. Now he talks about quantum mind. Now he is a physicist. Now how can he discuss about mind? Now look at his explanation, and he says that as a quantum physicist, I was able to understand, and then he equates it with dancing Nataraj. Now that's how he connected himself to the Indian schools of thought. Okay, now similarly, if you go ahead and read the book by Roger Penrose, it's not a very easy book. However, just dwell into the subjects and you will be able to understand about them also. Then they are like scientific accounts of physiological processes and states. On the other hand, you have got non-reductive physicalists argue that although mind is not a separate substance, try to understand, they're telling you that mind is not a separate substance. Mental properties are supervening on physical properties, or that the predicates. Now remember philosophy of logic, you have done a lot of predicative logic. Now try to understand, if you go ahead in your masters, if you take up the advanced logic classes, symbolic logic and the higher ends of it, where you will come up with the entire field of cognitive sciences, artificial intelligence, fuzzy logic, talking about so many things. So that's the importance that you need to take these things. Vocabulary used in mental descriptions and explanations which are indispensable and cannot be reduced to language. Now you will see philosophers of language like Frege, Russell, Moore, Whitehead, all are mathematicians. Now you just look at the way they have reduced the entire thing, and they say that yes, through the language we are able to identify the presence of mind. The lower level explanations of the physical sciences, so you can enter further. These are all they're talking about sciences, so I'm not so much interested. So continued neuroscientific progress have been taken care of. So these are certain schools that are present, and we need to understand and proceed further. So you will see modern philosophers of mind are talking about subjective qualities, my experiences, intentionality of mental states, and properties that can be explained in the most naturalistic terms, that is relying on philosophy of language. However, a number of issues have been recognized with non-reductive physicalism. Okay, now here it is irreconcilable with self identity over time. Now you see, but this is something you need to underline it and keep it. And I'll tell you, once you come to Bhagavad Gita and the chapter that we are focusing, let me complete the verses from 11 to 30, and you will understand how it is associated with the philosophy of mind. And here he's telling you very clearly, it is irreconcilable with self identity. You cannot identify with your own self within the time period. So look at Lord Krishna when he tells to Arjun, right now I'm there, you are there, as well as all these princes against whom you are fighting. However, they are timeless beings. They are there, they have to die somehow. Okay, they are going to die again, they're going to take birth, they will be again dying, so the cycle continues. So you know, you are not able to come up, and we will talk about the self identity over time later on, the issue of this one particularly. Then you will see, secondly, intentional states of consciousness do not make sense on non-reductive physicalism. You know, what do you mean by intentional states? Where you have an intention, okay, let me pick up this particular glass of water and drink. Now, can you reduce it to the non-reductive physicalism? Thirdly, free will is impossible to reconcile with either reductionist theory of philosophy of mind or the non-reductive physicalism. Okay, lastly but not the least, it fails to properly explain phenomenon of mental causation. You know, what is it that triggers the things which are taking place in your mind? Now what do you, I mean, how do you justify those phenomena? So these are certain things that you need to keep in mind with the issues when you are talking about non-reductive physicalism. So on one hand you have dualism, monoism, different schools of monoism. Under different schools of monoism we came up with reductionist theory of philosophy of mind. On the other hand, we have seen what exactly is non-reductionist physicalism is all about. So let me just stop here. In my next video presentation, I'll be talking more about mind-body problem. We will see what are the various arguments and what are the different schools of dualism. Or maybe if possible, I might take a longer thing also side by side. So thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.